Greetings, young Padawans. Welcome back to the channel. Eric's UK here. Today we're doing another games I have played because I haven't posted one of these up for a little while, and I was thinking we should talk about Star Wars. I was a Star Wars fan as a kid, massively. Before I'd even seen the film, I was big into it because my parents for Christmas one year bought me an absolute shed load of Star Wars figures from a catalogue, as we used to have back then. You'd get a box of goodies and a box of baddies, and I pretty much got this every year for like 5 years. And when I finally got to see the film, we recorded it on old Betamax videotape, and I pretty much wore the tape out, playing it, watching it, and having it just running in the background whilst playing with my Star Wars figures. Pew pew. Yes. So come the late 80s, my friend Chris picked up the first ever Star Wars role-playing game by West End Games. Now, this is a system that always hold a little bit of nostalgia for me because we played it a lot. He had the first edition, and I believe I had third edition. I might be slightly wrong there, but I think it was third edition. And I don't remember much of the system, but I vaguely remember that you had a set of dice, set of stats, and that determined the number of dice you rolled for things. Again, I might be slightly wrong. I also remember it didn't really have character, how should I say it? You didn't have a lot of freedom with characters. From what I recall, it was initially a load of archetypes. So you could kind of jury rig them a little bit, but you had things like Rodian Smuggler, Quixotic Jedi, Wookiee Co-Pilot, Jedi Apprentice, or Bounty Hunter or whatever. They were kind of very specific what they were, and I think in order to make your own character, you kind of had to really flaff about with things a little bit. I do remember that my first character ever for the West End D6 Star Wars was a Quarren Smuggler, and we ran a couple of scenarios before he was finally captured by the Empire and managed to escape simply on the grounds that he could breathe underwater, and was able to escape through the sewer tunnels and escape and join the rebellion. And it was a good game. It was a good bit of fun. I believe I had the third edition from about 1994 onwards, where a variety of source books that came out. West End Games did a great job because they covered a lot of the comics, a lot of the novels, as well as adding a few things of their own, a lot of which ended up turning up in the X-Wing and TIE Fighter computer games as well. As I say, I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but it wasn't exactly a great game system for my mind. It didn't really... You could capture the Star Wars feel, but you didn't really do a great job of it. And my next experience with Star Wars came about with the D20 system, not long after 3rd edition D&D came out. Wizards of the Coast released their own Star Wars RPG. And I really liked this. I've seen some bad attempts to turn the D20 system into a sci-fi game, but there were some really good efforts that worked well. One of them was the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars D20. The other was Mongoose Publishers and Babylon 5 D20, which I will come to in another bit. With this one, it was a lot better. It felt a lot more balanced. They did a really good job of making the class, rearranging the classes. You didn't have the power creep and over-the-top styles that you had of characters in D&D. They also did some really nice books. I remember there was a nice big chunky book of races and the like. and some nice source books for places like Tatooine and so on. And I only ever got to run that particular game probably a handful of times, because we were more, at that point, we were more or less D&D players. They did a second version of the Star Wars RPG, which wasn't as good. It was also, what really stood out to me for it was Wizards of the Coast did the books in this really kind of like half-sized hardcover format. And they kind of took what they had before and tweaked it, and it didn't come out quite as well. One of the things that I think Star Wars and other sci-fi games fail to do very, very well, and I have mentioned this in previous bits, is that they don't really handle ship-to-ship combat very well. You need a system that will allow you to somehow, without miniatures, handle the 3D aspect of Starship combat. I believe, and again, I might be slightly wrong, I believe it was this system that tried to do, or it might have been the D20, the original D20 system, that tried to do it by opposed piloting checks to see who was in a better position at a given stage in the initiative. But it wasn't, and I don't think I even got to run that particular game, that version of it. I think I had the books and then I ended up selling them off or giving them away or something like that. Ultimately, Wizards of the Coast either lost or gave up the Star Wars license, and it went to Fantasy Flight Games. And they did a Star Wars RPG that was split into I don't know if it had a specific name, I think it was just a Star Wars role-playing game. And it was split into a series of different books. You had one for like the Rebellion era, you had one for being smugglers, you had another one for, I think, the Republic sort of era, and so on. And they split everything between them. So if you could be Rebellion characters and have those rebel rules, and that would work fine. But if you wanted to be a smuggler, you had to go and buy, I think it was something like Edge of the Empire or something like that, which covered the underworld. So you had to go out and buy that. And some things didn't mesh particularly well between the different game systems. Prior to COVID, my friend Shadbolt actually tried to run a campaign for Edge of Empire. And we had a good time with it. It was a bit of fun. However, Fantasy Flight did what they always do in these games, and it really irritates me. Instead of using regular dice, they have to use these silly dice with different symbols. And whatever you roll, the symbols dictate what happens. So it's not a case of going, I need, 3 5-ups on 6 dice to be successful. It's a case of, all right, I've got a dice with 3 dots on it, I've got a dice with a skull on it, I've got a dice with, and you have to look up what these, there was even an app, I don't know whether they still have it, but there was even an app that you could roll the dice on and it would work out for you what happened. So I was not a fan of the dice system. And it kind of took away some of the Star Wars feel for me. Star Wars ultimately is a universe, a franchise that a lot of people are very passionate about. I'm less so. I ultimately became more of a Trekkie the older I got. But I still like my Star Wars, and I still don't mind the prequels, and I still don't mind the sequels. I just draw the line at TV shows. As a role-playing game, it can work. But I think you've got to have people who are going to get into it, who actually know the lore and the system, the background rather. And if you don't have that, if you don't have somebody who's interested in Star Wars, they're not going to get into the game as well. And as I mentioned about the Starship combat rules, you have got to... This is a problem, as I mentioned, with sci-fi Starship combat games in general. There needs to be someone out there in gaming publishing land needs to work out a set of rules that's not too complicated but not too simple to allow for ship-to-ship combat in a 3D environment that works. And so far, Star Wars has probably come the closest in some aspects, but at the same time, it's not amazing. Where it will go from here, whether FFG still have the license, I don't know. I would assume so. But we shall see where it goes. I haven't seen anything published since before COVID. Nothing's been mentioned. Whether we'll go back to that game or not, don't know. We shall see. So, what do you think? Do you think Star Wars translates to a role-playing game particularly well? Have you tried any of the editions? Have you tried the variations, such as using GURPS or another generic system? Which of those systems do you think handled it the best and which gave you the best campaigns? I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below or in another video chat. If you enjoyed this one, please give me a thumbs up. It helps the channel. Subscribe. And I will see you Padawans, you Jedis, in the next video. Take care, guys. Good gaming.